Hello, and welcome back to the Yoderverse podcast, first episode of the year. I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to try to make this quick, and I'm going to talk about 18 things I've learned from 18 years of living on this earth. I recently turned 19 on the 26th of December, around 3 weeks ago. And there's many things that I've learned throughout that 18th year that I feel like I should share with you guys. I'm not going to take up much of your time. I'll try to go through it as fast as possible. Feel free to like, subscribe, share. All links will be in the description below. The Wildlife podcast is coming back very, very soon, so feel free to subscribe to that as well. The newsletter is back to being active, and all in all, I hope that you enjoy this and you're able to take something away from it. So I just have a few things here that I've learned that I hope, help someone out there. So 18 things I've learned, or 18 lessons from my 18th year. Number one, you don't have to have it all figured out. One of the lies about adulthood that's propagated in a multitude of ways is the fact that when you become an adult, it's almost like the transition between 17, 18, it's almost as if there's this psychological thing that happens where you have instantly gained 5 years of experience just by turning 18, and that's not true. The truth is, you're still a child at the age of 18. Even people who are seemingly mature, there's still a lot of things that you're yet to learn, and you don't have to have it all figured out. So you get to the point where you're being asked, what's your plan? What are you studying? Have you finished school? What's your plan for finishing school? Are you going to driving school? Do you plan to go abroad? Are you studying here? Are you studying there? What do you have planned for your life? Stuff like that. You're starting any businesses and all that. And I get that. And the thing is, with the people that we interact with, it comes from a good place, generally. People don't have ill intent when they're asking you questions like that. The only problem is being 18 now, and even being 18 10 years ago, or let alone 20, 25, even 30 years ago, is completely different. The world is moving faster and faster and faster. And for the next generation, when they turn 18 in roughly 4 to 6 years, it'll be different for them than it is for us. So you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to not have a necessary plan. Not that you should be idle and have no idea what you're going to do with your life, but you don't have to rush things too quickly. You don't have to have the ultimate plan for your life in check. The second thing is your parents are human beings as well. And there's some things that they're still figuring out, and they're still living their lives, believe it or not. They're still living their lives. One thing that I can credit to my success as a human being is definitely my parents and the way I have been raised. Whether it's in regard to my education, or the way that I interact with people, or the way that I speak, or the base foundations of my faith, as I found to find faith for myself, and the things that we talk about and interact with each other, I can definitely credit a lot of that to my parents. But then I feel like as teenagers, when we're growing up, and I've seen a lot of cases in which you are not sometimes mature enough to be able to understand that your parents can be going through something, anything, and not seeing that, and then making an excuse to act a certain way because your priorities are more important. So sometimes just give your parents a little bit of grace when it comes to living life, because they genuinely are. Everything that a parent does, a good parent does, is in your best interest. So believe that and take it to heart. So the third is, not everyone is meant to stay. What do I mean by this? As teenagers, one thing that's the hardest to go through is the loss of friendships, let alone things like breakups and relationships. But I'm going to talk about friendships in this case. Not everyone is meant to stay. We all have friendships that have ended. I've had friendships that have ended recently in the last 2 to 3 years. And the truth is, not everyone is meant to stay. We all hear the phrase that there's friends for a season and there's friends for a reason. And that statement could not be more true. It is very, very true that there are friends that come because of a certain reason, and there's friends that you're in their life for a reason, and there's some that just stay. like your whole lives. I have some friends that I've known for 5, 7, some even 12 or 15 years, and they're still here. But there's others where you know them for 6 months to 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe you do school together and you don't see them again. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to stay. There's friends that you make that are supposed to be in your life for a certain reason and a certain season. Whether they're going to be with you for the next 60 years, the next 5 years, or even just the next month. There's a reason for everything, and not everyone is meant to stay. So, number 4, rest is not laziness. For someone who I'd like to think walks on a multitude of different things a lot, whether it's writing, art, this podcast, running and exercising and reading and just doing things. Sometimes it's hard to be able to think of rest as productive, and rest can be productive. You can have productive rest. There's things that you can do that exhaust you, and it's not a bad thing to rest. And the thing that I think has taught me that the most is running. I started running as a hobby around 3 weeks ago, and I'm happy with my progress so far. But one of the fundamental aspects of running, and I tested it, is the amount of sleep and rest that you get. I tried running while I was fatigued, a route that I'd run 5 times before, and it was horrendous to run that route. And it was perfect conditions, a nice cold morning, barely any people, barely any cars. But because I was fatigued and tired and didn't take into consideration rest, I stopped at some points. I had to walk at some points because my legs were just not working. And I tested that theory by running soon after I'd rest, done a full 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and I ran a further distance in a less amount of time just because of that factor alone. So rest is not laziness. Allow yourself to rest when you need to. Listen to your body, listen to your mind. If you're pursuing a skill or a goal, you don't have to, this thing of drawing every day or writing every day. I'm going to do 1,000 words a day. I'm going to draw this many pages of whatever a day. That's fine. But don't do it to the point at which you burn out. Number 5, comparison is a thief. This one is self-explanatory. I'll speak specifically from an artistic perspective. When you start drawing and creating and making art, there's points in time where you'll see other artists, even artists that you admire personally, the ones who inspired you to become an artist, and you can't help but compare yourself to them. Now, this is detrimental to your progress because you'll keep fixating on what they're able to do instead of focusing on learning to be able to get to that level. So as a result, you end up getting stuck from a psychological perspective, and it stunts your growth as an artist or a writer. You compare your first ever short story to the best novel you've ever read or a New York Times bestseller. That's just not how it works. So comparison kills and can stunt your growth. Number 6, boundaries are love. Sometimes when it comes to relating with people, it's good to have boundaries, and I think that's also self-explanatory. Boundaries aren't necessarily walls, they're more of bridges, so to speak. So saying no does not make you selfish, and I think that's one of the most important lessons that anyone can learn is saying no. Like having standards in general is when someone wants to, maybe it could be an activity or relating to a certain person. Maybe there's some things that as a person, there's some things that your values will not allow you to indulge in. That is a moment for you to decide no. Because once you say yes, you subject yourself to being able to be, for lack of a better word, manipulated to do the same thing over and over and over and over again until you lose your fundamental aspect and values. 7, mental health matters. I'll try to go through these quicker than I am right now, but it's, in general, mental health matters. There's been too many things and in the last year or so that have proven to me the importance of mental health, especially for you as an individual. Taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit, taking care of your heart is very, 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 very important. Again, it connects to the point I was mentioning about resting. It's good to rest and it's good to reach out. If something is going on in your life, talk to someone. It could be preferably your parent, because all in all, they're the ones that know you very, very well, more than your friends ever would. And this is not to take away from friendship. Friendship is an important thing, but your friend or if you're older, your spouse, or your parents, and if you're older, your spouse. Those can be people that you can rely on to be able to tell things, because bottling things up is the worst way to go about life from experience. Number 8, God is faithful, even when you're not. I take my faith very seriously. And sometimes you get into moments in which you feel doubt and despair and fear and heartache and heartbreak and every negative thing in the world. But despite the innate human nature to blame God for everything, if he's an unchanging entity, an unchanging being from the dawn of time and even before, that does nothing. It doesn't change. Just because you're going through something hard does not change the fact that God is faithful. And I think being able to realize that really just made me think, okay, God is always faithful. So all I need to do is stop complaining and ask him what to do in certain situations. Sometimes he'll bring people into your life. Sometimes he'll show you the way. He'll answer immediately. Sometimes it takes months or years to get an answer. But all in all, it doesn't change the fact that he is faithful. Next is, you can't pour from an empty cup. What I mean by this is, I wouldn't necessarily call myself an extrovert, but I am a people person to some extent, whereas I can interact with people generally, and I love interacting with people. I love understanding and getting to people's minds and seeing, how does this person think? Why do they act the way they do? That kind of thing. But you can't help someone without helping yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. And sometimes we feel like we're being generous and giving the best of ourselves to other people without first looking within to see how empty we are as individuals. Whereas you want to give someone a part of you, but that part of you is not really whole because you're not whole. And so sometimes it's good to take a step back, take care of yourself, and from that point in which your cup will begin to fill, then you can pour onto others and be generous with your time or your resources. Number 10 is, failure isn't final. This is a big lesson for a lot of people to learn. And I failed at a lot of things. I'm not a resolutions guy, so I set goals, weekly, daily, and monthly goals to be able to achieve. Did I achieve most of them? Yes. Did the ones that I didn't achieve hurt me a little bit? Yes. Do I hope to achieve those same goals this year? Yes. But just because I failed does not mean that that takes away from anything that I gained from the ones that I did succeed. So failure is not final. Number 11, your body deserves kindness. This is coming from more of a point of psychology, I think, is negative self-talk is the best way to injure yourself psychologically. So criticizing yourself or your appearance, we're all trying to get fit, we're all trying to get better, trying to eat better, we're trying to be more active, to move around. But sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, what am I doing? That kind of thing, yeah? But I think we should take to consideration the fact that you're actually doing something. And not only that, but I forget the verse, but it's a famous verse. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's something that's, just because you think differently of yourself doesn't mean God thinks differently about you. And he says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you're made in his image. And so negative self-talk is something that we should try to get rid of, and something I got rid of. When I went for the run I was talking about earlier, and I didn't perform as well as I did. When I got home, the first thing I said to myself, this was last Friday, the first thing I said to myself was, good job for running today. I just looked myself in the mirror and I said, you woke up at 4:50 in the morning and got to running at 5 in the morning, and you did such and such amount of kilometers, I think it was around 8.9, and you did 8.9 kilometers, and despite the struggle you kept running and you came back home, and I'm proud of you. I was saying that to myself, and that, I think, influenced the way I ran the next time I ran 2 days later on Sunday. It influenced the way I'm probably going to run tomorrow morning and stuff like that. So negative self-talk is something we should get rid of completely, and it applies to everything. Whether it's your art, whether it's your writing, whether it's your music, whether it's a skill you're building, it could be your baking, your cooking, it could be your life in general, your friendships. You can be insecure about something physiological about you, which most of us are to some extent. But especially if you're putting in the work to be able to change certain things, you have no right to be able to talk yourself down about stuff like that. Next is you're allowed to change your mind. This is a very interesting one. If you know me, I'd always been like a science kind of person. So from a young age, I'd say I wanted to be this and this and this and that, and they'll all align with science. Biology, inventor, adventurer. At some point, the strongest one was field zoologist. But then I changed my mind around 2 years ago. I was like, I want to do art. And from then it was just, oh, okay, I can't change my mind. And that's something I realized is if you know that a decision is going to help you, don't be scared to be able to pursue that decision. It's okay to change your mind. So, number 13, gratitude shifts everything. This is something that I can't say enough of. One thing that is so amazing is just being grateful for the things you have. There's many things that you can do. Of course, you can like write down the affirmations of the day and the things that you're grateful for. You're grateful for your family, your pets, your life, your all those things. Just doing it over time will be able to change your perception of life and help you be more content with the life that you have. And that's what gratefulness has done for me personally. It has made me more content with the life that I have right now. Not everything is perfect and there's some things you still yet to do in life, but contentment is a direct component of just being grateful. When you realize the fact that you're able to walk and talk and breathe and run and jump and blink and hold your head straight and sleep and eat certain kinds of foods and do certain things, that there are people in this world that are not able to do those things because of physical disabilities, but you're able to. And if they're grateful for their lives, even with certain disabilities, I follow this lady on Instagram. She's a fitness influencer, and she used to lift weights, and her favorite set of exercises to do was leg day. And I love leg day personally. A lot of people don't, but that was her favorite exercise to do. And then by an unfortunate turn of events, she lost her legs. And that's definitely be heartbreaking. But if you look at the videos that she makes, you'll be like, wow, she's so happy and grateful for the life that she has, even if she lost a muscle that she trained so long training. And that's a beautiful thing. Number 14, and I think I've talked about this before, is you're not too much. This is coming more from, I don't want to call it a therapeutic perspective, but when dealing with people, you tend to interact with certain people who feel, they won't say it out loud, but some people who feel like when they're in an environment of other people, that maybe they're too sensitive to some things, or they're too loud, or they're too quiet, or just in general existing within a social space just doesn't enlighten them because they feel like there's an issue. And that's not good. You're not too much. You're exactly the way you are because you are the way you are. It's that simple. Number 15, hard conversations are worth it. Avoiding hard conversations doesn't make them go away. It just makes them worse. So there's many things that we're scared to talk about as people. And as teenagers especially, whether it's with your parents, like whether it's pursuing marriage or relationships or friendships, there's certain things that, are hard to talk about, but they're necessary. And I think you should talk about them. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also freeing, which is the important thing. Number 16, social media isn't real life. At some point in my 17th year, I spent a lot of time on social media, both from a creator's and a consumer's perspective, but social media is not real life. And realizing that helped me just take a step back and embrace the fact that this is my life. And even if I post art and stuff like that, it doesn't change the fact that what you see out there is real life, yes, but it's not your real life. That's someone else's real life. When you see someone running a marathon and you see someone creating a masterpiece, that's their real life. When you see somebody going on vacation, that's their real life. It's still real, but it's just not your real life. Number 17, you're stronger than you think. I think in a world where we are faced with so much inherent negativity, there is a tendency for you to belittle yourself, so to speak, when it comes to social settings, when it comes to the way you lead your life. You shy away from doing things because you think you're not strong enough to do those things. And that's definitely not a good thing. You need to embrace the fact that you are stronger than you think. And shutting yourself down is a choice that you make. Even if someone says something bad about you, you're the one who is going to determine whether that thing affects you or not. So in essence, you're stronger than you think. And tying to that, number 18, which is something I've talked about, I think, twice before, is it's okay not to be okay. You don't have to have it all together all the time. You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to, take a step back. You're allowed to struggle. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to need help. That's important. So if you're not okay right now, that's okay. You don't have to be, but keep going. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 second at a time, even. So that is the 18 lessons that I've learned from my 18th year. And there's so many more. There's definitely many more things that happen in the year. But I think those are the ones that sum up the stuff that I learned last year. And so, thank you so much for listening or watching. And I really appreciate it. I'll hope to be more consistent with the podcast this year. Maybe just drop a few random short episodes here and there, just to keep things consistent. Once or twice a week, as well as the wildlife podcast that I had mentioned earlier. And if you want to watch the episode I was talking about It's Okay Not to Be Okay, feel free to. I'll put in the description, and at the very end of this video you can be able to access it there. And that should be it. If you're a reader, I have a newsletter, and yeah, all links will be in the description below. I really appreciate you listening or watching, and I will see you in the next one. So thank you, take care, and goodbye.